Chapter 61 The Lord's Castle is completed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 1,000 or 2 kilometers above Han Xing's head, a dull explosion suddenly sounded. That was the charged attack of the psychic puppet. In the Yunduo secret realm, Han Xing had seen the powerful attack power of elite puppets, but at that time, it was completely suppressed by coal briquettes, and had no chance to accumulate power. At this time, the psychic puppet also showed its powerful destructive power. Korean stars are very satisfied with this. In addition to these simple instructions, Han Xing discovered that he could also give it some more complex instructions, such as protecting the safety of the territory, encountering intruders, and attacking with all his strength. When there is no battle, it can also be placed on 24-hour alert and patrol. It is a puppet creature anyway, there is no such thing as fatigue. At this time, Han Xing touched his chin and thought, the psychic puppet is strong, but its size is too eye-catching. If I don't need it, is there any way to hide this big guy? That at present, it seems that unless this big guy can be stored in the storage space like other items, otherwise, it can only stay on the territory. When other survivors approach, they will see its huge figure at a glance. Although Han Xing felt in his heart that the idea of storing the puppets in the storage space was a bit unrealistic, he still decided to try it. When he tried to put this enhanced psychic puppet into the storage box, the next moment, this huge giant suddenly disappeared from the territory. At the same time, a miniature puppet model appeared in his storage box, occupying a full 10 blocks of storage space. Han Xing's eyes were blank, and then there was unconcealable ecstasy. Holy crap! Is that really possible? He was shocked. At this time, Han Xing thought again, if it can be stored in the storage box space, does that mean it can also be stored in my backpack space? Han Xing immediately released the psychic puppet from the storage space. Then, he freed up 10 spaces in his backpack and started trying to collect it. The next moment, the psychic puppet disappeared again, and in Han Xing's backpack, a figure of a steel giant also appeared. What the hell? Han Xing's shock at this time was beyond description. What is the concept of a behemoth that is more than 6 meters tall and weighs more than 10 tons, and he is just carrying it with him? But if you think about it, it can be explained. After all, the psychic puppet is not a living creature, but is a prop type like the equipment secret medicine made by Han Xing. It is normal to be able to be stored in the space. Han Xing suddenly had a sinister thought in his heart. He still has 7 damaged psychic cores in his hand. Although he cannot continue to make elite-level puppets, the properties of ordinary puppets are not bad. Moreover, 7 ordinary psychic puppets are actually more dangerous than 1 elite puppet. If you make it all and put it away in storage, when other guys wanted to invade their territory, when they came over, they suddenly saw 7 or 8 steel giants surrounding them. I wonder what their reaction would be. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but laugh sinisterly. Then, he eagerly began to repair the damaged psychic core in his backpack and clicked directly to create it. A system prompt appears. Whether to make a psychic puppet, it takes 2 hours to make. Han Xing clicked yes without hesitation, and clicked 7 times in a row. He wants to make all these puppets at once. By then, the territory's defense will be greatly strengthened. At this time, the sky was gradually getting dark. Han Xing did not continue to explore, but lit the torch stand on the territory and began to rest. At this time, Korean stars have already started scanning the information on consignment channels. The equipment he currently has a lot of room for improvement. His current trousers and boots are still the green animal skin clothes he made at the beginning. If he replaces them with blue leather armor, both his attributes and defense will be greatly improved. There are also necklaces and hats, which can now be replaced with blue equipment. After 2 days of exploration, the levels of the survivors have also improved, and the information on the consignment channel has also increased day by day, including blue equipment that was extremely scarce in the past. There are now many pieces of information for sale. Han Xing began to search part by part. Changed equipment level to blue. Soon, a lot of equipment appeared in front of him. Han Xing wanted to give priority to exchange for the blueprints. After all, the ones he made had higher attributes than those found in the treasure chest, but it is a pity that after the survivors got hold of the blueprints, most of them learned it themselves, and only a very small part will flow to the market. Thinking of this, Han Xing directly put several consignment information on the shelves. Consignment items, secret medicine of life star. Items required. Blue leather armor bottoms blueprint, blue leather armor boots blueprint, blue helmet blueprint. Blue necklace blueprint, consigner, galaxy. After these days of fighting, everyone has a deep understanding of the powerful effects of the secret medicine of life. In the previous wave of transactions, Han Xing only sold more than 7,000 bottles, and there was still a big gap in the entire Area 107, therefore, when Korean stars once again put the secret medicine of life on the shelves, it still caused a sensation. After a while, he got what he wanted in exchange. They are, night walking boots. Blueprint, blue, equipment level, LV7, pale leather pants, blue, equipment level, LV6, jungle warrior helmet, blue, equipment level LV7. Forest pendant, blue, equipment level LV7. These blue equipment blueprints require similar materials, mainly mithril and spiritual cores, which Korean stars are not lacking. He directly built more than a dozen sets, all of which were selected to the upper limit of quality of blue equipment, that is, treasures. The properties are as follows: night walking boots, blue, LV7, quality, treasure. Defense, 4-6, agility plus 12, comes with special effect, night shadow rush, dodge rate increased by 15%. Pale leather pants, blue, LV6, quality, treasure, defense 12-16, agility plus 8, spirit plus 5, with special effects, white lines, increases magic resistance effect by 20%. Jungle warrior helmet, blue, LV7, quality, treasure, defense 4-5, strength plus 5, constitution plus 5, agility plus 5, with special effects, hunting instinct. When killing an enemy, gain 3 points of strength bonus. It can be stacked up to 5 times, and the effect lasts for 60 seconds. Forest pendant, blue, LV7, quality, treasure, spirit plus 15, agility plus 10, with special effect, forest will. When activating the skill, there is a 10% probability of triggering the effect of reducing CD by 5 seconds. Han Xing looked at these 4 rare pieces of equipment with satisfaction, and then equipped them all. His attributes have undergone earth-shaking changes. All attributes have at least doubled, comparable to the attributes of an average human survivor at level 10. Very good. Now, I have a full set of blue equipment, plus a purple equipment weapon. Generally, survivors of the same level would have a hard time even breaking through my defenses. After throwing all the excess equipment made on the ground to the consignment channel in exchange for materials, Han Xing was ready to rest. He summoned an elite-level psychic puppet. A 6-meter-tall figure suddenly appeared. Just standing there gave people an invisible sense of security. Han Xing gave it the order to guard, and then entered a resting state. It was late at night. Han Xing suddenly felt a strong vibration, and he sat up from the sofa suddenly. When I saw the psychic puppet still guarding the side, I felt a little relieved. He thought it was other survivors or sky monsters attacking the territory. At the same time, the system prompt appears: territory building. The construction of the primary castle has been completed, and the defense of your territory has been strengthened. Elementary castle, core building of the territory. Remaining defense value, 1000. Castle effect: it can increase the defense value of all defensive buildings in the territory by 20%, increase the attack power of all offensive buildings by 10%, increase the attributes of all friendly units by 10%, and increase the traveling speed of the empty island territory by 10%. Note that when building multiple castles, only one castle at most will provide the boosting effect. Looking at the huge building in front of him, Han Xing suddenly lost all sleep and felt excited. At the same time, he also saw that his attribute panel, including the attribute panel of the psychic puppet, had a 10% gain effect. Although it is only a 10% gain, quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes. When Han Xing has more and more summons or puppets, the bonus he gets is far more than just 10%. However, the attributes are secondary. The main thing is that the appearance of this castle is very symbolic of his aesthetics. The castle is built in the center of the territory, like a towering giant beast. The city wall is tall and thick, made of solid stones. In the center, a steel gate emits a faint light, with faint traces of secret patterns on the edge, giving people a sense of an unbreakable sense of security. Okay, starting from today, I am also the one who owns my own castle. He couldn't wait to push open the steel door in the center of the castle, and his eyes suddenly opened up. as soon as you enter, you will see a hall with a height of 7 meters. The walls seem to be made of synthetic materials and are gray-white in color. Just by looking at it, you can imagine its defensive strength. The ground is paved with a layer of blue-gray stone tiles, which are very textured when stepped on. In the 4 corners of the hall, there is a pillar with a diameter of more than 1 meter thick, inlaid with many white moonstones and red dark flints. Moonstone and dark flint can not only provide lighting for the hall, but can also adjust the temperature in the hall anytime and anywhere. Coupled with the large chandelier made of mithril in the middle of the living room, the entire hall looks very bright and atmospheric. However, there is nothing in the hall now, and it seems a bit empty. Han Xing decided to make some furniture later to add a touch of life. There are 4 doors in each of the 4 corners of the hall, and behind each door there is a corridor leading to other towers. Han Xing pushed open the door on the left and entered one of the towers. Below the tower is a room with a window, which can be used as a bedroom or a material storage area. When you reach the 2nd floor of the tower, you will build a corridor around the castle. Walking around it is equivalent to touring all the territory. After walking around the castle, Han Xing went straight to the tower area in the middle. Chapter 62. Have you ever drank 700-year-old Lafite? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Xing walked straight to the tower, which was also the core area of the castle. Follow the steps and climb up, go all the way to the 3rd floor of the tower, where there is a room of about 20 square meters. The room is not big, but the view is extremely good. What's more important is that outside this house, there is an extended building, like a small balcony. Standing on the balcony, you can not only have an overview of the layout of the entire territory, but also see farther away. It must be very comfortable to sleep here. Thinking of this, he immediately decided to use this place as his bedroom. After placing the beds, tables, stools and other furniture, it finally felt like home. Han Xing clapped his hands, extremely satisfied with this bedroom. After putting these away, he walked to the small balcony area of the bedroom, moved a stool and sat under his buttocks, admiring the night sky. At this height, even a 6-meter-tall elite puppet seemed to be trampled under his feet. Han Xing looked up. At this time, the bright moon hung high in the night sky, and clouds seemed to surround it. With such a beautiful view, it would be even more perfect if we had some beer skewers. Han Xing couldn't help but think. Wait a minute, wine. I have it. Han Xing suddenly remembered the jar of wine he found in the cellar under the Lost Palace. That jar of wine is called black vine wine, and it is one of the favorite wines of the dwarves. Moreover, according to the system's notes, this jar of wine has a history of more than 700 years. Even among the dwarf nobles, it is not easy to drink black vine wine of this vintage. Han Xing took out the jar of aged wine with some excitement. The wine jar, weighing hundreds of kilograms, was easily held in his arms and then gently put down. The wine jar was extremely sealed. Even now, Han Xing could not smell the aroma of the original liquid inside. On the contrary, the wine jar itself had an extra layer of fermentation smell because it had been in the cellar for too long. With excitement, Han Xing slowly opened the cover. With a clear sound of opening the lid, the next moment, a strong aroma of wine penetrated the tip of the nose. The moment he smelled the fragrance, Han Xing couldn't help but shudder. Hiss. Han Xing couldn't help but take a deep breath. This moment was so refreshing. He swore that in his entire life, he had never smelled such a mellow and layered aroma of wine. The dwarves really know how to enjoy themselves. Han Xing admired sincerely. Even he, who rarely drinks alcohol, couldn't help but drool at this moment. Han Xing took out the wine glass and scooped out a glass of original liquid. The clear and translucent wine flowed in the glass. In an instant, the rich aroma of wine spread throughout the territory, and the fragrance literally spread for 10 miles. Han Xing took a sip and suddenly felt a dozen flavors melting on the tip of his tongue. It was a taste that he had never tasted on Blue Star. He smelled the fragrance of some herbs, grains, and various strange flavors. When they were all mixed together, it triggered some kind of strange reaction. Hiss. After taking one sip, Han Xing couldn't help but take a breath. This smells so damn good. He was a little incoherent. Is this really wine? This is simply jade dew. Han Xing couldn't help it and took a second sip. He was completely conquered by the black vine wine. At this time, he also admired the dwarf's brewing skills. They could brew such fine wine. They were indeed the race with the strongest brewing talent in the world. At this time, Mei Qiu was watching Han Xing's movements curiously. After smelling the fragrance, he came over instantly. It stretched out its small wolf claws and kept scratching Han Xing's leather boots, as if it wanted Han Xing to give it a taste. Speaking of which, the discovery of this jar of black vine wine was all due to the sense of smell of coal briquettes. Glutty little wolf cub. Han Xing laughed. Under Coal-Ball's expectant eyes, he poured half a cup of original liquid and put it at his feet. The Coal-Ball immediately stuck out its head and started licking it happily. Suck it up, suck it up. After a while, the black vine wine in the cup was licked clean by the coal briquettes. Han Xing saw the little wolf cub raise its head, its eyes were reddish, and it seemed a little unconscious. Coal-Ball's steps were frivolous. He staggered for a moment, and finally fell down. Ha ha ha. I called you greedy. Han Xing laughed. He just took 2 sips and already felt a little tipsy. The briquette guy drank half the cup. It would be strange if he didn't pour it out. After carrying the briquettes to the sofa, Han Xing returned to the small balcony and began to enjoy his time. At this time, Han Xing suddenly remembered that Qing Jianyong liked to drink. When he was in high school, he was a heavy drinker, but after getting married, he calmed down a lot. He suddenly had some thoughts of teasing him, so, Han Xing opened the discussion group and said, "Brothers, have you ever drank 700-year-old Lafite?" He then sent the black vine information to the discussion group. When he saw the 768-year information on the black vine wine, Shiqiang exclaimed exaggeratedly, "Fuck. A 768-year-old wine made during the Yuan dynasty. This is too exaggerated." Qing Jianyong swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively, "Brother Xing, where did you get it? Can you give me some?" Han Xing did not answer, but described to Qing Jianyong the delicious taste of black vine wine and the endless aftertaste. As Qing Jianyong listened, he felt that the alcohol bug in his stomach was beginning to stir up, and his saliva began to secrete crazily. He said in an almost pleading tone, "Brother Xing. My brother. Please, give me some, I swear, just a little. Damn it, after I came to this world, I almost forgot what wine tasted like. Now, there is a jar of 700-year-old wine in front of me. Isn't this going to make me hungry to death?" Han Xing laughed and stopped teasing him. Instead, he filled 200 milliliters in a glass bottle and traded it to him. This is the only convenience among survivors. If you need something, you can just trade it directly, which is easier than express delivery. Seeing that it was only 200 milliliters, Qing Jianyong said with some resentment, "Brother Xing, is that all?" Han Xing nodded and said, "A little is enough. Drinking too much will make you drunk. In this world, being drunk is very dangerous. You don't have much self-control, so I can't give you too much." Chen Miang wanted to say that he would never get drunk, but thinking of the embarrassing experiences he had when he was a student, he swallowed the words that came to his mouth. At this time, Qin Yun also said expectantly, "Brother Xing, give me some too." After hearing this, Han Xing gave Qin Yun 200 milliliters and said solemnly, "Remember, you can only drink a little at a time. Don't drink too much, or something will happen." Qin Yun also responded with a smile, "Don't worry, I'm not that guy Qing Jianyong." After a few mouthfuls, Han Xing heard Qing Jianyong start to speak incoherently in the discussion group. Han Xing didn't want to hear this guy get drunk and go crazy, so he closed the discussion group directly. At this time, Han Xing also felt a little sleepy. He resealed the wine jar and put it in the storage box, then went back to bed to rest. The next day, as soon as Han Xing opened his eyes, many prompts appeared in front of him. The psychic puppet was successfully produced. The psychic puppet was successfully produced. Han Xing walked to the balcony and saw 5 more 4-meter-tall metal giants on the territory, with a satisfied smile on his lips. Now, there are still 2 ordinary puppets on the production bar that have not been completed, and it will take 4 hours. Very good, we are one step closer to the formation of my puppet army. Coming down from the tower, Han Xing walked to the psychic puppet, and the attributes of the puppet appeared in front of him. Psychic puppet, 1 star, level, LV7, strength, 48, agility 37, spirit 35, constitution 55, with the bonus of the territory's primary castle. All attributes increase by 10%. Remaining spiritual energy value, 0. Investing 50 spiritual cores can inject 1 spiritual energy value into the puppet. Remaining defense value of psychic core, 100. Skills, energy shot, rock body, passive skill, when receiving physical attacks, reduce the damage effect by 40%. The attributes are similar to the ordinary puppets he encountered before, and after getting the boost from the castle, they have been upgraded to a higher level. Han Xing estimated that this level 7 psychic puppet might not be inferior to ordinary level 9 monsters in terms of attributes alone, coupled with its terrifying physical defense. Even some level 10 monsters are no match for it. Han Xing recharged all 5 puppets with full energy, consuming a total of 25,000 spiritual cores. Then, Han Xing put all the puppets into the storage box, and played the main role of pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger. However, for safety reasons, he freed up 30 backpack spaces specifically for placing elite-level puppets to prevent unexpected situations. Next, he began his easy leveling journey, with Coal Ball, a violent pet, and a puppet with a defense comparable to that of a leader-level monster. He basically had no opponent at the current stage. His experience skyrocketed, and Han Xing broke through to level 8 in just half a day. Briquettes has also been upgraded to level 7, a whole day passed, and Han Xing's experience value reached 40% of level 8. The territory expanded directly from 2246 square meters to 3,124 square meters. In the new rankings, Korean stars once again firmly occupy the first place with a huge advantage, and, this time there were no surprises, because even the current Whisperers and Black Hawks have only just reached level 7, not to mention the other survivors. They are generally at level 5 or 6, the huge gap caused them to give up their struggle. At the same time, somewhere in the sky, 7 or 8 territories covering more than 1,000 square meters were gathered together. They moved their territories closer together, all converging towards the same place. 8 survivors sat around a table in different corners, and sitting at the top was none other than the leader of God's Whisper, the Whisperer. At this time, looking at the appearance of the team members, the Whisperer said with approval, "Very good. After 2 days, we at Whisper of God finally assembled a team of 8 people. Next, as long as we unite, explore and fight together, our leveling and expansion speed will begin to skyrocket." Chapter 64 Release Notice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 64 Release Notice that it will be put on the shelves at 0 o'clock and will be updated with 10,000 words later. The first chapter will be published with 2,000 words, and you can subscribe using the chapter card. The young author is asking for a first order online. Thank you. Chapter 65 Ancient Weapon, Fragments of Financial Cannon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Xing is confirming whether this woman is worth rescuing. However, the female mage opposite was not surprised, but cried with joy. She quickly took out a piece of metal from her purse. The surface was golden and looked to be of extraordinary quality. "This is the prop." "What is this?" Han Xing continued to ask. While using the chi explosion technique, the female mage replied intermittently, I don't know. The system said this is a fragment of some kind of ancient weapon, with a coordinate position engraved on it, and it can be used to open a certain door." After the female mage finished speaking, Han Xing was 80% convinced in her heart. After all, judging from this woman's performance, it was impossible to fabricate a lie with relatively complete logic in a short period of time. So, he nodded and said, "I can save you, but according to the conditions, your mission prop belongs to me." Okay, that he wanted to make a confirmation, just in case he saved someone else and they turned against him, which would cause another lot of trouble. The female mage nodded quickly, but because the movements were too large, the pair of terrifying giant excess trembled up and down. They were far away just now, so Han Xing couldn't see clearly. Only then did he notice that this woman's figure was really a bit exaggerated. Before, I just thought she had a better figure, with bulging front and back, but now when I look at it, I can see that it's more than just bulging forward and backward. It's simply hot. There's flesh where there should be flesh, and slim where there should be slimness, and what's even more exaggerated is that under this woman's plump figure, she actually has a waist that is full of water snakes. From the waistline down, there are round buttocks as big as a millstone, and 2 long fleshy legs. The muscles are tightened at this time, making them look even tighter. Han Xing thought a little strangely in his heart. It turns out that there really are such cartoon-like figures in this world. At this time, the beautiful female mage seemed to be unable to hold on any longer, and whispered, little brother, can you hurry up? Man, I'm dying. She struggled to resist the siege of the kobolds. Don't worry. Han Xing slowly drew out the arrow and put it on the bowstring. The next moment, an arrow carrying the breath of wind shot out at extremely high speed. Call out, in the surprised gaze of the female mage, the wind-chasing arrow accurately hit the head of a kobold and penetrated the head. Not only that, after the arrow killed the kobold, its remaining power continued unabated and continued to pass through to the next target. Puff. Puff. 2 more kobolds were directly penetrated by this arrow, killed 3 level 6 monsters with 1 arrow. This terrifying attack power almost refreshed this female mage's understanding. However, before she could recover from the shock, Han Xing has already used his explosive skills, multiple bursts. Benedict. Tuck tuck. The refined iron arrows accurately hit each kobold, almost one at a time. 2 skills directly killed 6 powerful monsters. Not only the female mage was confused, but also the remaining kobolds. After seeing the death of their companions, these kobolds roared and rushed towards Han Xing, and their hatred had shifted. However, there were only a few monsters with lower levels than him. Even if they were numerous, Han Xing did not regard them as a threat at all. With a few arrows, the kobold tribe was wiped out. At this time, the female mage froze on the spot. Feeling a little unreal in her heart, she remembered that her fiancé once said that level 6 monsters were very powerful and could easily kill ordinary survivors. But under this young man's arrow, how do you feel that these monsters are as fragile as children? What she didn't know was that Han Xing had deliberately replaced it with a treasure-quality longbow in order to hide the legendary special effects of the Moon Crown longbow. Otherwise, the battle would be resolved faster. After the battle, Han Xing controlled his territory to connect with the female mage's territory. Then, he slowly walked to her side. At this time, the female mage was still in fear of escaping from death, and her chest kept rising and falling. Seeing Han Xing coming over, she seemed to react and quickly thanked. Many thanks to this little brother for the rescue. The little girl's name is Zhang Lianmeng. You can call me Liena or Lianjie. After saying that, she carefully raised her head and glanced at Han Xing quietly with her watery eyes. However, Han Xing didn't care what her name was, he only cared about whether he could get the hidden mission props quickly. Han Xing stretched out his hand and said calmly, "Bring it here." The female mage named Zhang Lianmeng bit her lower lip slightly after hearing this, and seemed to be a little hesitant. After all, she had finally obtained this mission item. She also knows the importance of hiding tasks at this stage, but when she thought about what she had just agreed to and Han Xing's strong fighting power, she could only compromise. Zhang Lianmeng bit her teeth, took out another metal piece from her pocket, and slowly walked towards Han Xing. However, what she didn't notice was that in the battle just now, a gap was torn in the lower abdomen of the robe by the kobold's attack. At this moment, above the lower abdomen, a large area of spring light leaked out. Han Xing seemed to see 2 snow-white balls, trembling and moving towards him. It wasn't until Zhang Lianmeng handed the metal fragment into his hand and a cold touch came that Han Xing came back to his senses. At this time, the system prompt appears: you have obtained ancient weapons, fragments of fused artillery. Han Xing also saw a series of numbers on the debris, which were 66487, 69876, and 21346. These should be the coordinates, Zhang Lianmeng asked softly at this time. Is it okay? Han Xing finally came to his senses and said, well, it's really big. What? Zhang Lianmeng seemed a little confused. Han Xing shook his head and said, no, it's a pleasure to cooperate. Zhang Lianmeng seemed to realize something. She lowered her head and saw her damaged robe. The next moment, her pretty face suddenly changed. She subconsciously crossed her arms and her face became extremely red with embarrassment. Han Xing coughed twice and said, you're fine, then, goodbye. After saying that, Han Xing turned around and left. Zhang Lianmeng stretched out his hand but hesitated to speak. When she saw Han Xing's back without looking back, she seemed to have mustered up the courage to say, well, can you help me again and take me to find my fiancé? My fiancé is Lu Zikai. He used to be the boss of Hengyu Company in Xinyang City and is now the management of the God's Whispering team. He has many people under him. If you can take me to him, he will definitely give you a lot of benefits, Zhang Lianmeng said excitedly, seeming to admire Lu Zikai in her mouth. However, Han Xing waved his hand and said, I have no interest and no time. I have to find your man myself. Zhang Lianmeng lowered her head in disappointment, but thinking of this mysterious young man's vigorous skills and exaggerated attack power, she couldn't help but become curious about Han Xing. Subscribe to watch. This woman is a team support person, so there won't be any bloody drama about grabbing a woman, so don't worry. Chapter 66 Huge Floating Island. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this time, Zhang Lianmeng continued, Brother, please wait a moment. 6. Han Xing stopped slowly and frowned, Is there anything else? As if hearing the impatience in Han Xing's tone, Zhang Lianmeng said nervously, Well, can I do this hidden mission with you? Han Xing frowned. Upon seeing this, Zhang Lianmeng quickly explained, Don't misunderstand me, I didn't suddenly regret it, but I thought of something related to the mission. What's the matter? Tell me. Han Xing sounded a little impatient. Zhang Lianmeng said cautiously, This fragment was accidentally discovered when I was exploring an empty island. There is a goblin camp inside. After defeating the group of goblins, I found an iron cage in the camp. Inside the iron cage was a very scary and terrifying person. That man was huddled on the ground. There were blood holes all over his body, but not a drop of blood came out. He was even thinner than skin and bones. Speaking of this, Zhang Lianmeng seemed to have thought of something terrible, and her delicate body trembled slightly. I originally wanted to rescue him, but as soon as I opened the iron cage, the man suddenly grabbed my arm. His palms were colder than ice. I was so scared. Then, without any explanation, he drew a mark on my wrist with his own blood. He also said that there is a hidden place in this place. You need to use this mark and the weapon fragment to open the giant stone door and start the mission. After saying that, that person died. So, I feel that if I don't participate in this task, I probably won't be able to complete it. After listening to Zhang Lianmeng's story, Han Xing's eyes widened. Damn, didn't you tell me earlier? Han Xing's questioning voice made Zhang Lianmeng tremble with fright, lowering his head and not daring to speak. Han Xing also realized that he had a bad attitude, so he softened his tone and said, Show me the mark on your arm. Zhang Lianmeng quickly rolled up her sleeves obediently, revealing a section of snow-white lotus root arm, and approached Han Xing's eyes. On his wrist, Han Xing did see a bloody mark, which looked like a symbol or some kind of weird writing. Han Xing nodded, thought for a moment and said, Okay, you will go on this mission with me, but before I say that, all the rewards from this mission belong to me. And as a reward, after the mission is completed, I can escort you to your man's place. What do you think? After Zhang Lianmeng heard this, he was overjoyed and nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Aha! Han Xing nodded, then returned to his island territory and slowly drove away. Seeing that Zhang Lianmeng was still in a daze, he said, Follow me. Zhang Lianmeng hurriedly controlled the Kongdao territory to keep up. Han Xing is decisive in doing things. Once he decided to do this task, he took action immediately. At the same time, he stood on the territory, groping for the gilded fragment in his hand, and murmured, Financial artillery. It sounds like a long-range weapon, and it should be quite powerful. If you can get it and put it in the territory, it can greatly enhance the territory's attack capability. The two sky islands were traveling one behind the other. After Han Xing rescued Zhang Lianmeng, time came to night. However, not long after advancing, Zhang Lianmeng suddenly found that her territory was getting further and further away from Han Xing, and her territory seemed to be much slower than Han Xing. This is because her current level is 2 levels lower than Han Xing's, and the advancement speed of the territory is already slow. In addition, Han Xing and the 10% speed bonus of the Lord's Castle will leave this woman behind in a short time. Please wait for me. In the distance, Han Xing heard Zhang Lianmeng shout. In desperation, he could only stop at Kongdao temporarily and wait for the woman for a while. Han Xing turned around and saw Zhang Lianmeng clenching her teeth tightly and chasing after him desperately. Han Xing shook his head, and then controlled the speed of Sky Island, which was almost the same as Zhang Lianmeng's Sky Island. Next, Zhang Lianmeng felt much more relaxed. They marched continuously for 4 hours. It was late at night. According to the habits of Korean stars, it is time to prepare for rest, so, he stopped. Later, Zhang Lianmeng carefully controlled the merger of his Sky Island territory and Han Xing's territory. Zhang Lianmeng asked nervously, "Well, why don't you leave?" Han Xing shook his head, "It's getting late. The coordinates on this metal fragment are a bit far away. A conservative estimate is that it will take 5 or 6 hours to get there. Let's rest today. It's not safe to drive at night. We'll continue tomorrow." Hearing what Han Xing said, Zhang Lianmeng also breathed a sigh of relief. She was indeed exhausted. First, he escaped from death at the hands of the group of kobolds, and then marched continuously for more than 4 hours, reaching the limit of his spirit and body. At this time, Han Xing noticed that Zhang Lianmeng's face was unusually pale. He looked at the woman's body and found that blood was still oozing from the injuries on her lower abdomen and shoulders. At this time, Han Xing suddenly felt something strange in his heart. This woman has been struggling to keep up with her own pace with such an injured body, which can be considered difficult for her. At this time, no matter how hard-hearted Han Xing was, he couldn't help but feel a little compassion. So, Han Xing asked, "Why don't you use the secret life medicine to recover from your injuries?" After hearing this, Zhang Lianmeng was a little confused at first, and then she was a little embarrassed to say, I don't have the secret medicine of life." "No?" Han Xing was a little confused. "Didn't you say that your man is the management of Whispering God? With such a big team, he can't even produce a bottle of secret medicine of life." After hearing this, Zhang Lianmeng replied, "Well, he told me that the secret medicine of life is a relatively precious item, and he doesn't have many bottles on hand. Recently, he just met up with the team and said he was going to challenge a 2-star secret realm. Now is the time when the team members need to use the secret medicine. My injury is only minor. I can rest for 2 days." Zhang Lianmeng lowered his head, not daring to look at him. Han Xing looked at her with strange eyes and asked, "Do you have a bad relationship with your man? Your fiancé was injured and you didn't even want to take out a bottle of the secret medicine of life." This question was very sharp and seemed to hurt Zhang Lianmeng's heart. Her delicate body trembled slightly, which was a little difficult to say. When Han Xing saw this, he said, "If you don't want to say it, you don't have to say it." Zhang Lianmeng raised her pitiful face, smiled bitterly and shook her head. "I say we have a bad relationship, but in fact we are not familiar with each other at all. He and I were introduced to each other through relatives and friends. We met less than twice in total. The reason why I got engaged was to cope with family tasks. After that, he also focused on his career and never looked for me. I originally thought that the two of us were really not familiar with each other and we needed to get to know each other slowly. But not long ago, I came to this world." After listening to Zhang Lianmeng's story, Han Xing suddenly asked with a strange look in his eyes, "Is your fiancé not good enough?" "Ah." Zhang Lianmeng didn't seem to understand the meaning of Han Xing's words. "Forget it, it's nothing." Han Xing shook his head. After saying that, Han Xing took out a bottle of secret life elixir and threw it to her. Zhang Lianmeng subconsciously reached out to catch it. When she saw the properties of this bottle of potion on the system introduction, she was so shocked that her mouth turned into an O shape. Han Xing waved his hand in front and said, "Drink quickly to recover. I have to do tasks later. I don't want you to be injured and drag me down." Zhang Lianmeng squeezed the secret medicine in her hand tightly and nodded heavily, her eyes filled with gratitude. After all, she is a woman several years older than Han Xing. Zhang Lianmeng seems to have seen Han Xing's character and knows that he is not the kind of person to be coy, so in front of him, he drank the secret medicine in his hand. The next moment, she felt a mouthful of warm power melting in her stomach, and waves of warmth spread throughout her body. Especially the wound was so numb that she almost couldn't help but cry out, "Hey!" A suppressed voice with a hint of joy appeared from behind. What's going on?" Han Xing turned around suddenly and looked at her with wide eyes. Zhang Lianmeng realized her gaffe and quickly covered her mouth, but the feeling of heat in her body continued. She tried her best to control herself not to make a sound, clamped her legs together, kept rubbing, covering her mouth and pressing the wound. I felt pity for this charming look, which made Han Xing, a hot-blooded young man, suddenly feel hot and his mouth went dry. Han Xing quickly turned his head and coughed twice. Ahem, just rest as soon as you recover. You have to be on your way early tomorrow morning. Aha. Zhang Lianmeng tried her best to control her voice, but what she didn't know was that the more she controlled, the weirder the sound she made. Han Xing rushed into his castle as if to escape. After Zhang Lianmeng suppressed it for a while, the recovery effect of the secret life medicine finally ended. She breathed a sigh of relief slowly, and sat on the ground covered in sweat. Her close-fitting robe was soaked with sweat, and she could even see her majestic silhouette, and her snow-white skin was looming. At this time, Zhang Lianmeng looked at the huge castle in Han Xing's territory, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and then blinked curiously, but she didn't ask any more questions, and honestly returned to her territory. In the center of Zhang Lianmeng's territory, there is a simple tent built with wooden sticks and cloth, where she usually rests. The night is getting darker. Zhang Lianmeng fell asleep on a straw mat, but in her dream, she seemed to dream about the back of a man. The next day, it was just dawn. Zhang Lianmeng felt someone calling him outside the tent. As soon as she exposed half of her head, she saw Han Xing sitting on a rock near the tent, waiting quietly. Since their territories are connected, Han Xing can freely come to her territory. Zhang Lianmeng blushed with embarrassment and seemed a little embarrassed to be watched by a man. Getting up, however, Han Xing asked with a serious face, "You seem to have said yesterday that your man is going to challenge a 2-star secret realm in the near future." That when he got up in the morning, Han Xing suddenly thought that this woman had said last night that the Whisper of God team was preparing to challenge a 2-star secret realm, which attracted Han Xing's attention. You know, even I was in a hard fight when I challenged the 1-star secret realm. Could it be that the top strength of the Whispering God team has reached this level? However, after thinking about it, it shouldn't be possible. The 1-star secret realm is already very difficult, and the difficulty of the 2-star secret realm will soar even higher. At the current stage, there should be few teams that can beat it. Even if there were, it would probably cost a lot of casualties. So, he went to this woman and said, as a friendly reminder, "If you still want to see your man, tell him not to challenge the 2-star secret realm." Ah. Why? Zhang Lianmeng seemed very puzzled. "Because I will die," Han Xing said concisely. After Zhang Lianmeng heard this, her face instantly turned pale. She did not doubt the words of the man in front of her. His strong combat power had already proven this. It was impossible for him to lie to himself about such a thing. Zhang Lianmeng quickly sent a message to her fiancé. After a while, Han Xing noticed that her face instantly became extremely ugly. "How did he say?" Zhang Lianmeng hesitated for a moment and said hesitantly, He said, "What do I know as a woman? The team of God's Whisper is very strong and will not fail in the challenge. He also asked me not to disturb him these days." Speaking of this, Zhang Lianmeng seemed extremely aggrieved, and in her heart, she was even more disappointed with her strange fiancé. Han Xing spread his hands, trying to persuade the damn ghost. He just mentioned it casually, as a kind reminder, and it was up to them whether they were willing to listen. Zhang Lianmeng didn't know what to do at this time. Han Xing shook his head. "Since he doesn't want to hear it, then don't worry about it and pack it up. We have to hurry up and get on our way. Hopefully, he can survive." Zhang Lianmeng hesitated to speak. After a moment, he sighed, not knowing what he was thinking. After waking up the woman, Han Xing returned to his territory and began to move towards his destination. 6 hours later, the two of them traveled continuously for more than 600 kilometers, bypassing many large clouds and barely stopping at all. Finally, in the afternoon, we arrived at our destination. What appeared in front of him was a huge floating island. This empty island is a real island, almost the size of a mountain peak. It is not wrapped in clouds, and you can see what's going on inside at a glance. It is covered with flowers, trees, and various plants. From time to time you can see birds flying out of the forest. This is the first time Han Xing has seen this kind of strange empty island, which is like a world in a fairy tale. This place does not seem to be the territory of monsters, because even when Han Xing approached, There was no prompt from the system. With a puzzled expression, Han Xing controlled his territory and approached it. Then, after fixing the location of the empty island, he took Zhang Lianmeng into the mountain forest. As soon as he landed on the ground, Han Xing felt a softness under his feet, which seemed to be due to the accumulation of fallen leaves all year round, and there was a rustling sound when he stepped on them. Chapter 67. The giant stone door slowly opens. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After stepping into the mountain forest, Han Xing observed the nearby terrain. 69shux.com. He turned back and asked doubtfully, "Is this mountain forest the destination?" Zhang Lianmeng quickly shook his head. I don't know." Han Xing nodded and didn't say much, but continued to advance into the mountains and forests with Zhang Lianmeng. Whether it is true or not can only be known by exploring. Moreover, he was indeed very curious about this empty island. However, Han Xing glanced behind him from time to time as he moved forward. A black shadow flashed across the territory and then jumped onto a branch. This black shadow is naturally briquettes. Since coming into contact with Zhang Lianmeng, in order not to expose the existence of briquettes, he has been letting briquettes hide in the castle. When they arrived at the mission site this time, in order to prevent any accidents, Han Xing also asked Cobalt to follow him at a distance. The two walked back and forth for about 5 minutes, and they were almost deep into the forest. Ahead, a deserted path suddenly appeared, because no one has walked through it all year round. The roadside is covered with weeds and vines, but he could still barely discern the direction of the path. Han Xing took the lead to step into the path, while Zhang Lianmeng followed closely behind him with some fear. Ever since entering the forest, Zhang Lianmeng has been acting a little nervous and breathing heavier than usual. Apart from being nervous, there was also a hint of curiosity in his eyes. After coming to this world, she had never seen such a huge empty island, and she had always shrunk in her own territory. Usually when she sees some empty islands covered by clouds, she has to carefully confirm them again and again before going to fight, but even so, she still encountered enemies that she couldn't fight on several occasions. If there are monsters in this mountain forest, Zhang Lianmeng's delicate body trembled slightly, as if she didn't dare to imagine. At this time, she could only follow the man in front of her closely, for fear that he would leave her here. However, Han Xing had no such idea. He just wanted to find the mission location quickly. At this moment, Han Xing suddenly stopped. Zhang Lianmeng behind him didn't stop for a moment and bumped into Han Xing's back. Behind his back, there was suddenly a soft touch, and Han Xing looked back in confusion, but he saw Zhang Lianmeng looking at his feet with a blushing face. Han Xing also knew what happened, but he didn't pay attention. Instead, he looked ahead and lost himself in thought. "Do you think we should go to the left or the right?" Han Xing asked. Zhang Lianmeng seemed to have just come back to his senses. What? I said, left or right." She looked at the intersection ahead and found that the path did fork at this point. One leads to the left and one leads to the right. Zhang Lianmeng blinked her beautiful eyes and said tentatively, "How about we go to the right and have a look?" "Okay." Han Xing agreed decisively. He stepped forward and took the lead towards the path on the right. After advancing for another 10 minutes and winding around in the woods, a clearing finally appeared in front of them. At the end of the clearing is a dense forest. Apart from that, there is nothing else. Han Xing thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "It seems that we are on the wrong path." Zhang Lianmeng quickly apologized. "Yes, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said to go to the right." Han Xing glanced at her and said angrily, "It's none of your business. I decided to come here. You just gave me a suggestion. Besides, I just went the wrong way. Just turn around and go to the left. It's not a big deal." After Zhang Lianmeng heard this, he hummed softly, feeling grateful to Han Xing in his heart. Just when Han Xing was about to turn around, he suddenly realized that there seemed to be something different in the open space in front of him. When I looked closer, it turned out to be a pool. The water is covered with fallen leaves. If you don't look closely, you can't really see them. At the same time, information about Shui Tan also appeared in front of Han Xing. Spirit spring water, a kind of pure drinking water that seems to contain some kind of life breath. After drinking it, you can slowly recover from injuries. Should I wipe it? It's actually spiritual spring water. Han Xing was very surprised. The last time he encountered spiritual spring water was in the Dark Elf camp. That time, he harvested more than 1,500 liters, allowing him to exchange for a large amount of resources. It was that batch of spiritual spring water that set him on the road to wealth. And how much spiritual spring water is in the pool in front of you? Simply immeasurable. As long as he masters this location, he will have no shortage of spiritual spring water in the future, and he can even use it to bathe directly. Looking at the pool of spiritual spring water, Han Xing thought in a low voice, the main material needed to make the secret medicine of life is spiritual spring water. Last time, the transaction was stopped because the material was exhausted. At that time, there were still many survivors who had not obtained it. There should be a big gap in the demand for recovery props in the entire 107 area now. The secret medicine of life can be used to make another round of profit. Thinking of this, Han Xing decided to take a batch of spiritual spring water away first. However, he looked at his backpack and saw that there was less than 5 spaces left. This is because he has freed up many secret potions of life and secret potions of wild bear power, otherwise the space would be even tighter. There was no way, after all, the elite-level psychic puppet alone occupied 10 squares of his space. The remaining space reserve can only take away 50 liters of water at most, but it doesn't matter. Han Xing can make a few more space backpacks on the spot, although, each survivor can only equip 2 space backpacks, but isn't there another person here? Thinking of this, Han Xing looked at Zhang Lianmeng and asked, "Do you have any storage space items on you?" It seemed that this was the first time Zhang Lianmeng heard about the storage space props, and he shook his head blankly. Then, Han Xing made 2 space backpacks on the spot, one with 4 points of spirit and the other with 4 points of agility, and threw them to her casually. "See the properties of the 2 space backpacks in your hands." The woman's eyes were blank at first, and then her mouth turned into an O shape in surprise again. This. Zhang Lianmeng was a little incoherent. Is this a space backpack? Han Xing rolled his eyes at her. Isn't the item information written very clearly? A storage backpack with 30 spaces can hold a lot of things. Come here and give me 50 cells of this pool of spiritual spring water. I can use it. Ah. Oh, okay. Zhang Lianmeng walked over obediently, then according to Han Xing's instructions, he began to collect the spiritual spring water from the pool. 50 grids is 500 liters, which is enough to make 5,000 bottles of secret life elixir, and you can make a lot of money by throwing it into the trading market. After collecting the spiritual spring water, Zhang Lianmeng asked tentatively, "Is this enough?" "Of course it's not enough, but we don't have enough space, so we can only bring this much for the time being. Let's pick it up next time we have a chance." "Oh. Okay." Zhang Lianmeng responded obediently. Han Xing nodded. At this time, he couldn't help but think, the mature woman is sensible and will do whatever she is told without asking why. Then, Han Xing took Zhang Lianmeng back to the fork in the road. This time, they chose the left. The path on the left is winding and in very bad condition. All kinds of thorns and obstacles along the way were cleared by Han Xing one by one. From a distance, the briquettes were still hanging behind him, appearing at any time when Han Xing needed them. After advancing for nearly half an hour, Han Xing discovered that they seemed to have finally reached their destination. They seemed to appear in a valley, surrounded by rugged rocks. The rocks here are huge, and every few meters away, there is a black boulder. Han Xing asked at this time, "When you were doing the first ring mission, what door did it say to open?" Zhang Lianmeng thought about it for a moment, and then replied, "Well, it seems to be called the Stone Gate." "The gate of the boulder, the boulder." A thoughtful look appeared in Han Xing's eyes. Could it be that there is another cave behind these stones? Then he started searching in this valley, but in this valley, there are huge boulders 1 or 2 meters high all over the ground, and I don't know which one is the key clue. Seeing Han Xing lost in thought, Zhang Lianmeng seemed to know what his problem was. Although her brain is not very bright, she still has the ability to act, so, Zhang Lianmeng began to use his own method, touching each other stone by stone. Han Xing didn't say much. Everyone has their own way of acting, and he also appreciates this kind of discerning woman. I know my own strengths, but I don't want to be a mere vase and try my best to make some contribution in my own way. After about 10 minutes, Zhang Lianmeng suddenly touched a black boulder, and the whole valley suddenly shook. Ha! Sensing the movement on her side, Han Xing immediately came over. The surface of this stone is extremely smooth, and in the very center, there seems to be a groove 1 centimeter deep. At the same time, a system prompt appeared in front of me, Boulder Gate. It seems that someone has set a taboo on this stone. It needs to be combined with the melted cannon fragments and the blood mark to open it. The two looked at each other. Han Xing took out the metal fragment from his backpack. Zhang Lianmeng also raised his wrist, revealing the bloody mark. The metal fragments were put into the grooves on the boulder, and the next moment, a burst of red light suddenly appeared in the center of the boulder. Han Xing glanced at Zhang Lianmeng. She understood the meaning and pointed the mark on her wrist at the red ray. This appears to be an identification device. After verifying the mark on Zhang Lianmeng's wrist, the red light suddenly turned into green light. The next moment, the valley began to tremble violently. To be precise, it was the huge rock in front of Han Xing that was shaking. A system prompt appears. The giant stone door is slowly opening. Boom. After the tremor ended, the boulder in front of him moved to the side. In front of Han Xing, an entrance about 2 meters high appeared, and there seemed to be a deep passage inside. It was pitch dark inside the passage, without a trace of light. Just looking at it gives people a sense of horror. However, this is not a problem for Korean stars. He took out a torch made of dark flint from his backpack. With a flick, the dark flint began to emit bright red light, immediately dispelling the darkness at the entrance of the cave. Seeing Zhang Lianmeng's scared look, Han Xing said, "If you are scared, you don't have to go in. Anyway, the door has been opened and your mission has been completed." After saying that, without waiting for Zhang Lianmeng's reply, Han Xing took the lead and stepped into the passage. Behind him, Zhang Lianmeng suddenly became nervous when he saw Han Xing disappear. She looked around blankly, and suddenly thought, what if she encountered a monster after the man entered the cave? A great fear arose spontaneously. Thinking of this, Zhang Lianmeng gathered up his courage and walked in tremblingly. This dark passage seemed to be unexpectedly long. Han Xing walked for nearly 2 minutes, but still didn't reach the end. At this moment, he heard some strange movements and footsteps behind him, and immediately asked, "Who?" A familiar female voice came from behind. It's me." Han Xing stopped and saw Zhang Lianmeng behind him through the light of the dark flint. She seemed very frightened, holding her arms tightly and her body trembling uncontrollably. "What are you doing here?" Zhang Lianmeng lowered his head and said somewhat unspeakably, I don't know either. I just feel that compared to the darkness inside, I'm more afraid that you will abandon me." Han Xing was stunned for a moment. This bitch, does she know what she just said? Do you know how damaging this sentence is to a man? What the hell, using this method to test a young man who has never even been in love? Han Xing looked at her deeply, then, he took out another dark flint torch from his backpack and threw it to Zhang Lianmeng. Zhang Lianmeng subconsciously reached out to catch it, and the majestic scale trembled up and down. This woman did not know whether it was intentional or not. During the battle yesterday, her robe was damaged and she did not replace it with a new one. She can still see the white skin on the damaged area, coupled with the deep mountains and old forests, and the dark caves. It is difficult not to have other thoughts in people's minds. Han Xing quickly shifted his gaze, silently recited the heart-cleaning mantra in his mind, and then looked forward again. After advancing for a few more minutes, it seemed that we had finally reached the end of the passage. They came to a spacious area one after another. It looked like a cave with a lot of space inside. However, it is also dark here, without a trace of light. As soon as he entered, Han Xing smelled an unusual smell, like the smell emitted by rotten animals, but because there is no air circulation in the cave, the smell here lingers. Zhang Lianmeng also smelled this smell, but she was so nervous now that she couldn't think about it at all. At this moment, she suddenly kicked something. Zhang Lianmeng held up the dark flint torch and looked down. A humanoid skeleton that was close to decay suddenly appeared. This look immediately frightened her so much that her face turned pale. She wanted to scream, but hurriedly covered her mouth. She tried her best to control herself not to scream. After a while, "Wait until the fear subsides," Zhang Lianmeng said tremblingly. There is something here." Han Xing heard the huge fear in her tone. He quickly turned around to check. Han Xing saw the skeleton on the ground at a glance, but it looked a little different from a normal skeleton. It was small in size, like a human child, and it looked like it had not been dead for long. In the dark cave, there was a fresh corpse. The scene in front of me was quite strange. Chapter 68 Bounty Mission. City Massacre Murderer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Xing observed the bodies on the ground and came to a conclusion: this should not be the body of a child, but another race in this world, the dwarves. Dwarf? Han Xing sounded a little confused. On the side, Zhang Lianmeng looked at him with curious eyes. Han Xing did not explain, but continued to look at the surrounding ground. It's okay if you don't look at it, but when you look at it, you suddenly take a breath of air. On the floor of the cave, there are skeletons of various beasts and humanoid creatures everywhere. These skeletons have different characteristics. Some have diagonal foreheads, some have wings on their backs, and the height of the skeletons ranges from 2 to 3 meters to 1 or 2 meters. There is no doubt that these corpses are special creatures of this world. Among them, Han Xing also saw several corpses that had just died. Their death conditions were very strange. The skin on the surface was intact, and there was not even a trace of blood. However, the flesh and blood on their bodies seemed to have been drained away, leaving only a thin piece of human skin covering the skeleton. Han Xing turned around and asked, "Did the person you found in the goblin camp look like this last time?" Zhang Lianmeng nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Although she was still very scared, for some reason, Han Xing felt an inexplicable sense of security when she was around her. Han Xing clearly felt that this cave was a bit strange, and so far, there are no next clues to trigger the hidden mission, nor any traces of ancient weapons. Han Xing began to continue searching in the cave. Half an hour later, they walked around in a circle, but found nothing except the skeletons of hundreds of corpses. However, he did get some information, that is, the area of this cave is really large. A conservative estimate is that the diameter is at least more than 2 kilometers. At this moment, Zhang Lianmeng suddenly pointed forward and said, "There seems to be something painted on the wall." Han Xing quickly looked in the direction she pointed, and indeed saw some graffiti-like patterns. Taking a closer look, Han Xing found that the style of these patterns was more realistic, more like murals. Han Xing walked to the beginning of the mural, which showed the appearance of an elf man with pointed ears and slender limbs. He sat on a high branch, smiling, overlooking a village below, but when it came to the second mural, the painting style suddenly changed. It seemed to be a scene of this elf man being bullied by several other elf people, stepping on his feet and beating him repeatedly. In the third mural, the elf man retreated into his small room, weeping silently. A middle-aged elf with a terrifying face stood beside the bed, looking at him with a strange smile. Especially the deep pupils of the middle-aged elf were painted extremely vividly. Han Xing could feel the creepy feeling from the mural. The fifth, sixth, and even the dozens of murals that follow are all scenes of this elf boy being bullied. Elf men have been bullied by other elves from childhood to youth, and their temperament has become increasingly gloomy. But the strange thing is that in every picture, there is a middle-aged man with a terrifying face, hiding in the corner and watching silently. Until the 30th mural, this elf man was kneeling beside his bed. Lying on the bed was the middle-aged elf who often appeared in the painting. Seeing the middle-aged elf dying, the elf man not only did not feel any heartache, but instead showed a relieved smile. However, even after the elf died, his situation did not seem to get better. He still endured insults and beatings from other elves. What's even more terrifying is that the elf man still feels that those terrifying eyes are staring at him. Isn't that guy dead long ago? He thought so, until the 53rd mural, an elf girl with a gentle smile on her face appeared. She was like a beam of light shining into the darkness, and also illuminated the life of this elf man. She became friends with him for a brief 2 days, and then left. Whenever the elf man felt like he couldn't hold on any longer, he would think about the smile on the elf girl's face, and the corners of his mouth would unconsciously show the same smile as hers. However, when he saw the elf girl reappearing, she was already with an elf who often bullied him. The psychological defense that the elf man had finally established was torn apart at this moment. He ran to question the elf girl, but what he got in return was ridicule and beating. The elf man fell to the ground covered in blood. Faintly, he seemed to see the shadow of the middle-aged man appear again, squatting and whispering in his ear. The elf man went crazy. He returned to his room, drew a strange magic circle, then cut his wrist and let the blood flow. In the magic circle, a terrifying shadow appeared. When the elf man was dying, he knelt down respectfully to him, and he also gained powerful power. The elf man went to find the girl with a smile on his face. He thought that after gaining strength, he would be able to gain her approval again. However, when the girl saw him, she was so frightened that she backed away. Her eyes looked like she was looking at a monster. Only then did the elf man see his current appearance. His dark brown hair began to fall out in handfuls, and then his eyebrows all fell off with just a light touch. In the end, not even a single hair on his body was left, and all fell off. He was like a naked monster, standing on the street, receiving weird looks from his peers. However, the changes are far from over. After losing all his hair, his nails also began to fall off, and sharp claws grew. At the same time, his nose became as swollen as a grunt. Not only that, his arms were connected to his body, growing a pair of huge fleshy wings. At this moment, he transformed from a noble elf into a hateful-looking strange bird. The elves quickly called in guards to hunt down this monster. When the sharp spear penetrated his chest, the elite man's eyes widened, and the fear of death made him subconsciously wave his flesh wings. At this time, he discovered that he was actually flying. The elf man began to spread his wings and run wildly, his eyes filled with hatred and anger. He rushed to a secret place in the center of the town, took out a huge golden cannon from it, and began to frantically wash away the town. Countless elves died tragically under his cannon fire, and the town turned into a sea of fire. After doing all this, the elf man turned around and ran away, and he was naturally wanted by the elves. In the process of running away, the elf man was desperate and found an ancient magic circle. The place the magic circle leads to is called the abandoned land of the gods. That place seemed to scare this strange bird. However, in order to survive, he finally activated the teleportation array. At the end of the picture, the elf man found a floating island and entered the forest, but what he didn't notice was that there seemed to be a black shadow that followed him to the island. After reading this, Han Xing seemed to understand something, and seemed to have some bad premonitions in his heart. He said in a serious tone, "It seems something went wrong." Zhang Lianmeng looked nervous and her body was shaking slightly. "What's wrong?" Han Xing frowned. "So far, we haven't found any clues about the hidden mission. Speaking of which, when I came into contact with the metal fragment, the system didn't say it was a hidden mission. It just said that the metal fragment could be used to open the giant stone door. In other words, what the NPC told you may be false, and we were fooled." "What?" Zhang Lianmeng's delicate body trembled, her face full of disbelief. At this moment, a pair of red eyes suddenly appeared deep in the dark cave. Behind the scenes, terrifying wind sounds could be heard from time to time. Han Xing obviously realized something was wrong and said quickly, "There is a monster, run." But by now, it's too late. A terrifying monster came from behind at great speed with the sound of howling wind. Han Xing quickly took out the legendary quality Moon Crown longbow and instantly entered combat mode. However, at this moment, a terrible hurricane hit. Han Xing and Zhang Lianmeng were thrown upside down by the hurricane for more than 10 meters. The dark flint torch fell from his hand. With the fiery red light, Han Xing finally saw clearly the creature that attacked them. It was a terrifying strange bird that was over 2 meters tall, had a pair of huge fleshy wings, and had no hair on its body. It is exactly the same as the monster shown on the mural. At this moment, the system prompt came: "You have found the hiding place of the elf trader Caleb, and the bounty mission, City Massacre Murderer, is automatically triggered. You can complete the mission according to your own choice. Option 1, kill the strange bird Caleb, take its head to the elf capital, and collect the reward. Option 2, go to the elf capital, tell the elf guards where Caleb is hiding, and help them capture Caleb. Please note, because you are in the land abandoned by the gods and the elven capital map has not yet been opened, this task cannot be completed for the time being." "Oh my god, it turns out this is the real hidden mission." Han Xing turned around sharply and met the monster's bloodthirsty eyes. Almost without thinking, he shot a wind-chasing arrow. Ding! Seeing the arrows coming, the strange bird flapped its fleshy wings, creating a hurricane and blowing the arrows aside. This arrow had no effect, and Han Xing's heart sank. It was at this moment that he finally saw the attributes of this monster. Strange bird Caleb, 1-star leader-level creature. Level, LV10. Attributes, Strength 94, Agility 132, Spirit 105, -30, Constitution 76, -30. Skills, Howling Wind, Flesh Wing Protection, Giant Claw Bite, Shadow Strike, Gale Wind. It's actually a level 10 leader level creature. that the Korean star's face changed wildly. Chapter 69 The Leader-Level Monster Appears. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Xing gritted his teeth and cursed, "Damn it, this mission is a trap from beginning to end. That piece of metal was deliberately thrown out by this strange bird. It has attracted many people in this way. Those corpses on the ground are all unlucky ghosts who were tricked in by strange birds." Zhang Lianmeng on the side turned pale with fright after hearing this, and even the staff was a little unsteady. She said with a trembling tone, "Yes. I'm sorry, I didn't expect this mission to be a trap. I'm sorry for you, Wu-Wu." Han Xing just wanted to speak. The next moment, the strange bird's breathtaking red eyes had locked onto him. A terrifying figure lunged towards him. The leader of the strange birds activates the skill, Shadow Strike. At the same time, Han Xing knelt down directly, drank a bottle of the secret medicine of wild bear power, and then used his strongest explosive skill without hesitation, multiple arrows. Tuck tuck tuck. Arrows were shot out one after another. This attack triggered several special effects at the same time: the moonlight flows, the power of the barbarians, the armor-piercing arrows. With multiple blessings, the attack power of Han Xing's arrow has reached a powerful level. Puff. Poof. Among them, 3 arrows accurately hit the charging strange bird and penetrated deeply into its skin. Gah! After a hoarse scream, the strange bird's sprinting body stalled, and then fell to the ground suddenly. The strange bird seemed not to have expected that the human with such a weak aura in front of him could actually hurt him. Even Zhang Lianmeng on the side looked at him in shock. This is a level 10 leader-level creature. An ordinary level 6 survivor cannot even break through defenses. In her heart, her understanding of Han Xing's powerful attack power once again refreshed her mind. However, at this moment, the strange bird launched another skill, Screaming Wind. A powerful hurricane came over the ground, carrying stones and sending Han Xing and Zhang Lianmeng flying away. The two fell heavily to the ground, and their bodies were scratched with many bloody marks by the stones. At this time, Zhang Lianmeng's robe was torn into strips by the roaring attack, and a large area of snow-white skin was exposed. And the scene became a bit fragrant. However, the Korean star was not in the mood to see this at this time. The hurricane caused by the strange bird just blasted out several bloody holes in his body. At this moment, his throat suddenly felt sweet, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. "Hey, is this a leader-level monster? The attack power is really terrifying," Han Xing said while wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. He seemed to be no match for the monster in front of him, and the situation had reached a point that was not conducive to them. Looking at his appearance, Zhang Lianmeng seemed to have made some kind of decision. She clenched the staff in her hand and stood in front of Han Xing. "What are you doing?" Han Xing asked with confusion on his face. Zhang Lianmeng gritted her teeth, seemed to muster up all her strength, and mustered up the courage to say, "I'm sorry, it was me who brought you here. Although I am very weak, I should be able to hold this monster back for a while." You run away first." But her voice was soft and a little firm. At this time, the strange bird had rushed over again, but it seemed to be a little afraid of Han Xing's attack power and did not attack immediately. Instead, he chose to hover around him, seemingly looking for the right angle to attack. Quack! That the piercing strange screams kept coming. After Han Xing was stunned for a moment, he suddenly asked, "You want to hold this monster back? How?" Zhang Lianmeng looked pale and shook his head. I don't know." Han Xing smiled and said, "It seems okay. This strange bird likes to suck blood. With so much flesh on your body, there should be a lot of blood that can keep it sucking for a while." After Zhang Lianmeng heard this, he also knew that Han Xing was making fun of him. She gritted her teeth and retorted softly, I'm not fat. I'm not even 120 pounds, I just look a little fleshy." Han Xing shook his head and did not intend to continue teasing her. He said, "Okay, come back. It's just a level 10 leader monster. It's not ready to die." Zhang Lianmeng looked at him blankly. At this moment, the strange bird rushed over. Han Xing pulled Zhang Lianmeng behind him, looked at the strange bird and said coldly, "Ugly thing, today, I will let you see my true power." Zhang Lianmeng was shocked and confused, thinking that Han Xing was about to unleash some big move. As a result, Han Xing suddenly shouted, coal briquettes. Save me. Zhang Lianmeng's face was filled with questions, however, just as Han Xing finished speaking, in the passage behind him, a black shadow rushed towards him at great speed, at a speed exceeding that of the strange bird. It instantly appeared on its bare head, coal balls stretched out its wolf claws, and a cold light flashed in the dark cave. Aha! Swish! The next moment, the strange bird screamed, and there were a few blood marks on its body, and this is just the beginning. Coal Ball once again showed its strong maneuverability when fighting against the elite puppet. Before the strange bird could react, it scored more than a dozen injuries on its body. The defense reduction status is immediately full. The strange bird was extremely angry, roared to the sky, and began to flap its fleshy wings frantically, trying to attack the fur ball. However, with Coal Ball's terrifying dodge rate and speed, even a level 10 boss cannot hurt it. It barely dodges and withstands the strange bird's attacks, constantly causing damage to it. This form is the true combat power of Coal Ball. Just upgraded before, it can fight against psychic puppets with leader-level strength and completely suppress them. As for this strange bird, in terms of threat level, it is not as good as an elite psychic puppet. Its physical and mental attributes seem to have suffered some kind of negative state, and had dropped a lot. The physical body is extremely weak and has no Lord-level defense. Its only advantage is its agility and strength, but it is still suppressed by the briquettes. At this time, Zhang Lianmeng could not clearly see the battle in the darkness. He could only vaguely see what seemed to be a black shadow frantically attacking the strange bird, and it seems like the strange bird is at a disadvantage. The strange bird screamed repeatedly. She was completely confused. She didn't know what kind of creature that black shadow was, but it must be related to Han Xing. This man was a little more mysterious and powerful in her heart. At this moment, the strange bird attacked several times. Not only did it not touch a single hair of the coal briquettes, it also had dozens of claw marks on its body. At this moment, the strange bird felt furious. It took a deep breath, and its skinny chest slowly expanded. Looking at this posture, it seemed to be preparing some kind of big move. At this time, Han Xing suddenly remembered the fifth skill of the strange bird. The wind blew wildly. That seems to be an area of effect killing move. At this time, Han Xing said with a serious face, "What the hell, are you taking advantage of me in front of me? Do you think you don't take me seriously at all?" That the strange bird heard the sound and glanced at Han Xing with red eyes. The next moment, it suddenly saw 5 arrows shooting towards its head. It was already too late for the strange bird to escape now. At the critical moment, it had no choice but to interrupt the charging of its ultimate move, raise its fleshy wings, and struggle to block its vital points. Puff! Poof! All 5 arrows hit, and pillars of blood shot up. Gah! That the strange bird screamed, seeming to have been extremely seriously injured. It was expected that Han Xing could injure the strange bird. After all, his attack power is more powerful than coal briquettes. When the strange bird leader first came out, Han Xing was able to damage it. Now that he has been weakened multiple times by coal balls, his arrow attacks have become even more lethal. At this moment, the strange bird couldn't see the enemy. It flapped its wings, and the gust of wind forced the coal briquettes back. Then, without looking back, it rushed into the depths of the cave at an even faster speed. This strange bird actually ran away. Han Xing was stunned for a moment and was about to take advantage of the victory and pursue the victory, but he seemed to have thought of something. His expression suddenly changed, and he gave up the idea. Coal Ball's figure flashed and he was about to catch up. Han Xing quickly shouted, "Coal Balls, come back." Coal Balls stopped chasing. The battle came to an abrupt end. Now, in the deep cave, the only sounds left were the breathing sounds of 2 people and 1 wolf. Han Xing took a deep breath, stared at the direction the strange bird was leaving, and after a moment said, "Let's go." Zhang Lianmeng seemed to have just come back to his senses at this time. "Ah. Where are you going?" Han Xing glanced at her. "Where else can we go? The strange bird was beaten away, not killed. It may come back at any time. This is someone else's territory. Who knows, it has no other means, so it's better to leave first." At this time, Han Xing suddenly looked at her, showed a sinister smile and said, "Or do you like the atmosphere here and want to stay here?" After hearing this, Zhang Lianmeng's delicate body trembled and she hurriedly said, "No. I don't want to stay here alone." "Then leave quickly." Han Xing smiled and walked towards the entrance of the passage first. Zhang Lianmeng followed him closely, almost never leaving. At this time, she asked nervously, "What was the black shadow that helped us fight just now?" Han Xing knew that she was asking about briquettes, so he said casually, "My pet, don't ask any more questions." Oh. Although Zhang Lianmeng was very curious, she vaguely figured out Han Xing's character and said no more. Han Xing walked slowly towards the entrance of the passage. Faintly, he felt a pair of evil eyes looking at him from the depths of the cave. Ever since he saw those murals, he had been feeling uneasy. Even after the strange bird was repulsed, the uneasiness in his heart did not diminish at all. At this time, Han Xing remembered the contents of the mural. This strange bird was obviously transformed by the elf man, and it is recorded in the mural that there was a terrifying black shadow that followed him and even escaped here with him. In other words, there is probably more than one enemy in this cave. The strange bird, it's so weird here. Before he has enough strength, Han Xing never wants to come to this ghost place again. This is also the reason why Korean stars shout to stop coal balls. At this time, briquettes also followed behind them. It wasn't until he entered the passage that Han Xing slowly breathed a sigh of relief. After just a few hundred meters of walking, he felt that his back was almost soaked with sweat, which was comparable to a big battle. Chapter 70 Han Xing's Murderous Intention. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 10 minutes later, they returned to the familiar entrance, and a light appeared in front of them. Han Xing couldn't help but pull Zhang Lianmeng's wrist and quicken his pace. Zhang Lianmeng was suddenly held up by Han Xing's hand, and their bodies tensed together instantly, almost instinctively wanting to shake him off. But when she thought of this man, she felt a little strange. The feeling was indescribable. It was as if, when he was holding her, I felt a little more secure for no reason. Zhang Lianmeng felt the force coming from her wrist, and her face turned red with embarrassment. His hands are so strong. Being held by this man, I actually felt a sense of security that I had never felt before. Even her fiancé and family have never given her this feeling. At this moment, the front became brighter. They walked out of the valley, and their vision suddenly became clearer. Han Xing immediately let go of his hand, and Zhang Lianmeng's dream was suddenly interrupted. For a moment, he actually felt a little disappointed in his heart. Han Xing felt something was wrong with her expression, so he asked, "What's wrong with you?" Zhang Lianmeng quickly replied, "No, it's okay." There was some guilt and shyness in her voice. Han Xing glanced at her and asked no more questions. Han Xing continued, "Let's go back to the territory first." Zhang Lianmeng lowered his head and agreed softly. 20 minutes later, they returned to their territory one after another. This trip to the cave yielded nothing, and I even had a fight with a boss monster. No, it can't be said that there was no gain at all. At least, he brought back hundreds of liters of spiritual spring water. Moreover, Han Xing also got 2 key pieces of information through the mission introduction. The place where these survivors are located is called the Abandoned Land of the Gods, and the indigenous people of this world seem to avoid this place like snakes and scorpions. Even after this strange bird committed a heinous crime, the elves did not dare to rush into the Abandoned Land of the Gods to hunt it down. The second piece of information is that the elven capital city map may be opened in the future, but Han Xing does not know when exactly. These 2 pieces of information may sound insignificant, but they are of great help in helping Han Xing understand this strange world. At this time, Zhang Lianmeng still lowered his head and did not dare to look up at him. Han Xing didn't know what the woman was thinking, so he said, "Ask your man to send you the coordinates, and I'll take you there." Zhang Lianmeng seemed a little confused. Han Xing continued, "According to the agreement, you will accompany me to complete the task, and I will send you to find him." After hearing this, Zhang Lianmeng asked doubtfully, But the task is not completed." Han Xing nodded, "It's not completed, but something happened this time. These accidents are beyond our control, and we can't blame you. Although I am not a good person, I will still do what I say." Zhang Lianmeng still stood there in confusion. Han Xing urged speechlessly, "Hurry up." Zhang Lianmeng suddenly felt a little lost. After some mental struggle, she said softly, "Okay, I'll contact him." Han Xing nodded and waited quietly. 2 minutes later, Zhang Lianmeng glanced at Han Xing nervously. "I seem to be unable to contact him." Zhang Lianmeng's face changed. She seemed to have thought of something. "In the morning, Han Xing reminded me, the two-star secret realm that Whisper of God and the others are going to challenge is extremely difficult, and there will definitely be casualties. Zhang Lianmeng's heart sank, and he suddenly had some bad premonitions. She said tremblingly, Isn't something really going to happen to him? Han Xing rolled his eyes at her and said, You ask me, how do I know? Zhang Lianmeng was completely confused at this time, so much that there was a trace of mist in his eyes. Looking at Han Xing, she was so aggrieved that she almost cried. Han Xing saw this and said quickly, Stop crying. Maybe your man is just fighting in a secret realm and doesn't have time to reply to you. Let's check back later. Han Xing tried to say, although he also knew that this possibility was very small. Zhang Lianmeng sobbed softly, then nodded heavily, seeming to hold back the grievance in his heart. Han Xing continued to ask, What should you do now? Or should I leave you here? I don't have time to wait for your man's reply. Zhang Lianmeng raised her head, and a strange thought came to her mind for no reason. She looked at Han Xing with tears in her eyes and asked tentatively, Can I follow you? After hearing this, Han Xing was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, You have a good idea, follow me. Do you want me to be a free nanny for you? Zhang Lianmeng mustered up the courage and continued to fight. I am very sensible. I can do housework and cook. When I encounter monsters, I can also help fight. I will never hold you back. Speaking of this, there was a hint of crying in her voice again. After hearing the conditions offered by this woman, Han Xing thought for a moment and shook his head. No. Han Xing's clear rejection made Zhang Lianmeng feel that the last hope in her heart had been wiped away, and she seemed to be almost unsteady on her feet. I'm leaving. You can take care of yourself. Goodbye then. Ignoring the disappointed Zhang Lianmeng behind him, Han Xing returned to his empty island territory. Just as he was about to control the island to leave, suddenly, in the distant sky, a shadow rushed towards him at great speed. It was extremely fast, and it took almost only a few seconds to cross several kilometers and appear above Han Xing's territory. A terrible wind sound suddenly came from the sky above our heads. Not waiting for the Korean star to react, in the sky, a fireball as big as a washbasin, carrying destructive power, slammed towards Han Xing's territory. Upon noticing this aura, briquettes jumped out of the castle almost instantly. However, even at its speed it was too late. The next moment, the fireball slammed into the surface of Han Xing's territory, and then exploded. Boom! The huge shock wave directly blew Han Xing away more than 10 meters, including the coal briquettes that rushed towards them. They were also thrown back by this shock wave. As for Han Xing's 3-story territory, a large crater with a diameter of more than 20 meters was directly blasted out by this cannon. A system prompt came, Your territory was bombarded, and the territory area was lost to 423 square meters. Shelling? Who is it? Han Xing raised his head blankly and looked at the sky. Suddenly, I saw a big naked bird flying in the air. At this time, this strange bird was carrying a huge cannon with a gilded surface and a muzzle diameter of more than 40 centimeters on its shoulders. It's just that this artillery is already covered with dense cracks. This strange bird had red eyes at this time, looked up to the sky and screamed strangely, its eyes full of the pleasure of revenge. Quack! It's it. At this time, Han Xing remembered. He saw in the mural that after this strange bird gained power, it slaughtered an entire town of elves. In other words, this guy is actually a very vindictive being. Before, it suffered a loss at the hands of Cole Ball and Han Xing, but it came back so quickly thinking of revenge. Asshole! Han Xing gritted his teeth and wished he could cut this strange bird into pieces on the spot. At this time, Cole Ball also bared his teeth and showed a fierce look in his eyes, ready to rush into the sky to knock down the strange bird. However, the strange bird has a powerful weapon at this time, and it also knows the horror of briquettes. The next moment, the muzzle of the gun shifted and was suddenly aimed at the charging coal briquettes. Coal briquettes, come back! Han Xing was horrified. With the terrifying lethality of this artillery, one shot would probably take it away, or even kill it instantly. Although the briquettes have a 50% dodge probability, what if it doesn't trigger this time? Han Xing was really panicked. The sudden change caught him off guard. However, the strange bird would not give him time to think. It pressed a red button on the gilded cannon. This shot was not only aimed at the briquettes, but also at the Korean stars below. Next moment, a cannonball carrying the aura of destruction arrived again. In this extremely critical time, Han Xing suddenly saw that the sky above his head turned dark. An empty island territory of more than 1,000 square meters blocked the top of his head. Territory? Who? Before he could think about it, the falling shell had already made contact with the territory above his head. Next moment, the horrific explosion struck again. Boom. A large crater of more than 20 meters was blasted out of the entire territory from the middle. This shot seemed to have shattered the core of the territory, and the entire territory of more than 1,000 square meters fell apart at this moment. A familiar figure fell from above, then he fell heavily in front of Han Xing. At this moment, the coal ball had already let out an angry roar, rushed into the sky, and fought with the strange bird. The strange bird has no chance to press the button again and launch a bombardment. Below, Han Xing softly read the name of the beautiful figure. Zhang Lianmeng. Why? That he had a very puzzled look in his eyes, and he quickly walked to the woman's side and squatted down. Zhang Lianmeng stared at Han Xing in confusion. However, Han Xing did not feel any breath on her body. Dead. Han Xing was at a loss for a moment, as if he was in a dream. He had never experienced such a scene. A living life passed away in front of him, and it's to protect yourself. He froze in place. Then, a huge anger suddenly emerged from the depths of his heart uncontrollably. This anger directly swallowed him up, and his eyes turned red. He instantly raised his head and looked at the strange bird in the sky. A terrible murderous intention burst out from his body. At this time, the veins in Han Xing's hand holding the moon crown longbow could not be controlled. Han Xing has never been so angry in his life. He gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice, "Damn guy, I will cut you into pieces." However, at this moment, Zhang Lianmeng's body suddenly trembled as he thought he had lost his breath. The next moment, a trace of bright red blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Han Xing felt that the woman's nose had regained a little breath again. At this moment, the anger in Han Xing's heart suddenly disappeared, and hope was rekindled in his heart. He subconsciously dropped his bow and arrow and quickly checked Zhang Lianmeng's injuries. After a while, Han Xing breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Fortunately, his internal organs were damaged by the aftermath of the shell, so he didn't die on the spot. At this moment, Han Xing felt that a heavy burden suddenly fell off his shoulders, and his whole body felt relieved. The internal organs were shocked. This kind of injury may be very difficult to treat in the modern society of Blue Star, and it may even be equivalent to a death sentence, but here is a magical world that cannot be explained by science. Everything is possible. All it takes is a bottle of secret life elixir to save her from her injuries. Han Xing lifted Zhang Lianmeng up, placed her in his arms, and then quickly poured a bottle of the secret medicine of life into her mouth. A few seconds later, Zhang Lianmeng's pale face had a trace of blood, and his white pupils gradually gained focus. She seemed to have walked away from the gate of hell. At the moment of consciousness, she took a deep breath. Drink. She subconsciously grabbed Han Xing's arm with such force that her nails almost got stuck in her flesh. Even so, her body was still shaking violently uncontrollably. Painful pain spread through his arm, but Han Xing did not break away, but allowed the woman to hold on tightly. He knew that Zhang Lianmeng was frightened. He was almost killed by a direct bombardment, and anyone else would be scared to death. If you are mentally weak, even if you survive, it may leave a lifelong shadow. Han Xing patted her shoulder gently and said softly, "It's okay." Never mind. These 3 words seemed to carry a special magic power, allowing Zhang Lianmeng to instantly escape from the great horror between life and death. She looked at Han Xing with a pale face, then suddenly buried her head on his chest, crying uncontrollably. Woo 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 woo. Zhang Lianmeng threw herself into Han Xing's arms. This time he didn't stop her, but allowed her to vent her panic and grief until her chest was soaked with tears. In the sky, coal briquettes are still fighting with strange birds. This strange bird can't stand its sight and is preparing to run away again. However, at this time, Han Xing had already killed it in his heart. After Zhang Lianmeng cried for a while, he fell into a deep sleep. Han Xing stood up, looked at the strange bird with cold eyes and said, "I wanted to spare your life in the cave, but now, you actually dare to rush over to seek death on your own, then I will grant it to you." The next moment, Han Xing waved with one hand. A steel giant that was over 6 meters tall and exuded a metallic color suddenly appeared on the territory. The next moment, the psychic puppet soared into the sky. Skill, earthquake shock is activated. The strange bird seemed to be a little dazed, but the moment it saw the elite puppet appear, it realized something was wrong. The flesh wings fluttered and he wanted to escape. However, how could Han Xing make it happen? He shot a wind-chasing arrow directly at the heart of the strange bird. The briquettes followed closely. In order to avoid the attack, the strange bird's escape was blocked. It flapped its wings as hard as possible and wanted to fly into the sky. At this moment, the psychic puppet had already rushed to an altitude of more than 10 meters. Under Han Xing's command, the psychic puppet stretched out two giant steel hands and grabbed the wings of the strange bird. In the desperate gaze of the strange bird, the psychic puppet grabbed it hard and then pulled it down from the sky.